Item: SCP-1444. Code name: Hunger. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures: the land surrounding SCP-1444 has been purchased by the Foundation under the cover story of a private wildlife preserve. Outpost 1444 has been established adjacent to SCP-1444 to monitor it. The primary responsibility of Outpost 1444 is to prevent unauthorized access to SCP-1444. However, as a precautionary measure, it is also to guard the entrance of SCP-1444 to prevent the emergence of anomalous entities from within. Outpost 1444 is to monitor for any telecommunication signals emanating from SCP-1444. In the event that any are detected, they are to be recorded, logged and otherwise ignored. Update: following recent events, all plans for further exploration of SCP-1444 have been placed on indefinite hold. Additionally, while the special containment procedures of this file have been updated, the description is still pending revision. SCP-1444 HMCL Supervisor Dr. Kaisa Jarvinen. Description: SCP-1444 is an ice cave in North Ostrobothnia, Finland. Topography and spatial dimensions are unstable and inconsistent inside SCP-1444, altering between incursions within. SCP-1444 contains multiple anomalous organisms with variable features and abilities, designated SCP-1444-1X. Only 3 incursions into SCP-1444 have been conducted by Foundation assets. All information concerning SCP-1444 comes from these incursions, but this information has epistemic concerns. See SCP-1444 log transcripts for more information. SCP-1444 was discovered after IO Beholder flagged a May 2013 Alu newspaper article about an injured hiker as suspicious. The story was compared to previous articles involving urban legends around a monster cave and assigned a high probability of anomalous activity. The May 2013 newspaper article detailed disappearance of 3 hikers and the recovery of a 4th member of the hiking party. This surviving hiker was discovered with a severe case of hypothermia and cranial trauma. The hiker testified that her hiking party had taken shelter in a cave and became trapped after falling into a crevice. The surviving hiker did not fall into the crevice and reported hearing the screams of both other members of their hiking party and unidentified creatures. After failing to find a safe descent into the crevice, the surviving hiker fled the cave and was discovered shortly thereafter. An interviewer was dispatched to investigate further, but unfortunately, had their supplies of amnestics and veritants mislabeled. As a result, the memories of the surviving hiker were rendered incomplete, and the only useful testimony recovered was the location of the cave. SCP-1444 log transcripts. Exploration log, D-1820 and D-3749. Exploration video log transcript. Date: the 12th of June, 2013. Subject: SCP-1444 Initial Exploration Log. Mission Command: Dr. Jarvinen. Personnel: D-1820, D-3749. Begin log. Dr. Jarvinen. This is the first exploration into SCP-1444, which will be conducted by 2D class personnel numbered 1820 and 3749. Please identify yourselves. D-3749, 3749. D1820, 1820. Dr. Jarvinen, thank you. Please proceed into the ice cave in front of you. D1820, yes, ma'am. D3749 and D1820 enter SCP-1444 as instructed. D3749, so what are we supposed to do here? Just enter the cave and find a way out? Dr. Jarvinen, this is an initial excursion. We're not looking for much at the moment, just the audio-visual feed from within SCP-1444 briefly cuts out, with only static received by Outpost 1444 for 1 minute. After this minute, audio-visual is restored. D1820, Dr. Jarvinen, are you there? Dr. Jarvinen, yes, I'm here. The connection just cut out. Was there anything that could have caused that on your end? D3749, just cave. Dr. Jarvinen, strange. Anyway, the purpose of this excursion is simply to locate any anomalous phenomena. D3749, in English, please. D1820, that was pretty fucking clear English. Dr. Jarvinen, you're looking for anything weird. D1820, noted. D3749, why couldn't you have just said that? Why do you always insist with this clinical bullshit all the time? Dr. Jarvinen, please proceed further into the anomaly. Your sentences will not be commuted if you do not comply. D3749, fine. D1820 and D3749 continue within SCP-1444 for the next 20 minutes, before coming to a steep drop in the tunnel. D1820, down, Ms. Jarvinen? Dr. Jarvinen, Doctor. And yes, please descend into the cave. D1820 and D3749 remove their climbing tools and descend the drop in the tunnel. D3749 stops midway down, and motions for D1820 to stop as well. D3749, do you hear that? D1820, hear what? D3749, like a really quiet howl. Listen. Both D-Class stop all movement and cease making noise. A faint, nearly inaudible howl is picked up over the radio. Dr. Jarvinen, go find what's making that noise. D3749, we're still climbing. D1820, I'm sure we'll handle it as soon as we get down, which shouldn't be long. D3749, most of the way there. D1820 and D3749 reach the bottom of the drop and shine their flashlights around. The two are standing in a large cavern, with 3 separate tunnels going in different directions. The howling is louder, and is apparently coming from 2 of the tunnels. D3749 points to the right tunnel, which the howling is not coming from. D3749, how about that one? D1820, no. It's coming from the other 2, we need to go through those. You take left and I'll take middle. D3749, fine, but we're not splitting up. D1820, we need to cover our ground, figure out where this is coming from. Dr. Jarvinen, I don't recommend splitting up. D3749, left. D1820, sounds good to me. Do we have any weapons on us? Dr. Jarvinen, you should have been given knives. They're not really meant for combat, but I've seen them used for that before. D1820, sounds good to me. Seem like they'll work well enough. D1820 and D3749 head down the left tunnel. The howling becomes more audible and distinct. D3749, what does that sound like to you? Does that sound like a D1820 person? Yeah, it does to me too. I don't think that's an animal. Dr. Jarvinen, many animals tend to sound like people in their cries. Foxes, for instance, are like a woman screaming. D1820, I've heard about that, but this feels different to me. I'm sure there's someone down there. D3749, or something. You've heard all those stories about monsters they have? What if it's something like that? D1820, of course. I used to be stationed with a couple. Get your knife ready. D3749 and D1820 walk down the tunnel in silence, with their knives drawn. They reach the end of after 3 minutes. At no point does the howling stop. The tunnel terminates in a large cavern, with a humanoid entity, SCP-1444-1A, crouched against a far wall. It is loudly howling. The cameras used by D1820 and D3749 do not capture a clear view of the entity. D3749, Jesus, what the hell is that? Is it even human? D1820, one of the hikers, maybe? There aren't supposed to be monsters in this cave, right? SCP-1444-1A rises to its feet. It stands approximately 3 meters tall, covered in shaggy white fur. The ends of its hands are covered in red stains, presumably blood. Neither camera is able to capture the face. SCP-1444-1A begins to howl louder. D1820 and D3749 run from SCP-1444-1A. During this time, video feed from D3749 cuts out, with no apparent cause. D1820 runs down a different tunnel than originally used to enter the cavern. Dr. Jarvinen, 1820, do you copy? D1820, yeah, just let me catch my breath. Dr. Jarvinen, is 3749 with you? D1820, no. He's missing. I lost him when we were running from the monster back there. Do you not have a feed from him? Dr. Jarvinen, we're only receiving from you at the moment. D1820, I guess I should find him, then. Dr. Jarvinen, yes, that's the best idea. Go try to find 3749 or an exit, if possible. Prioritize your safety. It's likely 3749 is dead. D1820 proceeds to walk through the tunnels of SCP-1444, not encountering any unusual phenomena in the course. The howling is no longer audible. D1820 eventually comes to a juncture. D1820 shines his flashlight down both tunnels, illuminating D3749 in the right tunnel. D1820, hey, I found you. Over here. That was pretty easy. D3749, thank God. I don't know what happened. I was with you, and then I wasn't. I don't remember anything of what happened. D1820. Shit. Must be the cave. Come on. Let's try to get out. Did you find an exit out of here? Any luck? D3749. No. But I hate this fucking cave. Let's look for one. Dr. Jarvinen. Finding an exit seems good at this point. We've gotten some good data so far, and we can end the exploration now. D3749. I'm glad you're happy. D1820 and D3749 continue to walk through the cave, coming to a steep rise. They use their allotted equipment to climb it, taking several minutes to do so before continuing through the cave. D1820 and D3749 walk around a corner, coming across an apparent exit and an unidentified individual SCP-1444-1B. The external location of this entrance is unknown. D3749. Whoa. SCP-1444-1B. Why? Hello. D1820. Who are you? Are you with the Foundation? SCP-1444-1B. No. I suppose you could say that I am a genius loci. For a layman, like the two of you, just think of me as the spirit of the cave itself. The cave itself. D1820. I know what a genius loci is. D3749. Go fuck yourself. SCP-1444-1B. Now, I'm supposed to be the cold one. What's the reason for the hostility? I have been nothing but kind to you. D3749. If you're the fucking spirit of the cave, then you're behind all that bullshit we just had to deal with. D1820. Is that a way out? SCP-1444-1B. Behind me? That is what you want. Freedom. Just right there. D3749. There is no way I am trusting the goddamn cave itself. This place is a nightmare. D1820. Gabe. Come on. We're so close. It's right there. Just listen to it, please. D3749. I don't trust it. Dr. Jarvinen. Comply with the entity. Attempt to exit SCP-1444. SCP-1444-1B. You can leave, you just have to do something for me. I'm just so very hungry. Do you have any food you could spare? D1820. Oh sure, we've got some in our packs. D1820 removes his supply pack and opens it, removing his food rations, which he then hands to SCP-1444-1B. SCP-1444-1B. Beautiful. Pass on, and become free. D1820. Thank you. D3749. Thanks, I guess. D1820 and D3749 begin to walk towards the exit. SCP-1444-1B. But I'm afraid there just isn't enough here in these packs. D3749. Wait, what? Video feed immediately ends, although audio remains active for an additional 10 seconds. During this time, D1820 and D3749 can be heard screaming in pain. End log. Exploration log. PTF Thorn 2. Exploration video log transcript. Date: the 19th of June, 2013. Exploration Team. Provisional Task Force Thorn 2. Temps. Subject: SCP-1444. Mission Command: Dr. Jarvinen. Team Led: Letterthorn-2 Cap Rose. Team Members: Letterthorn-2 Citrus, Letterthorn-2 Moloch, Letterthorn-2 Crown. Begin log. Letterthorn-2 Cap Rose. Alright, before we go in I want to run introductions. First time and all. My codename is Rose. I'm in charge. I exclusively led provisional task forces, so I've never been on any mobiles and you've never heard of anything I've done. Letterthorn-2 Citrus. Hello, I'm No Citrus. I've worked in the Finnish military, but this is my first Foundation deployment. Letterthorn-2 Moloch. Formerly on Nu 7, but I've been reassigned here for the mission. Letterthorn-2 Cap Rose. Why? Letterthorn-2 Moloch. Pending. Letterthorn-2 Crown. They gave me the codename Crown. I was once on an esoteric coalition strike team, but defected to the Foundation. Better ideology. Letterthorn-2 Cap Rose. A greenie, a probie and a traitor. Just as good as any provisional, I suppose. Dr. Jarvinen. Rose, are you ready? Letterthorn-2 Cap Rose, as I'll ever be, Doctor. Let's go, team. Provisional Task Force Thorn 2 enters SCP-1444, switching their flashlights on once inside. Letterthorn-2 Cap Rose, this is primarily a survey mission. On the previous exploration, the D-Class ran into a few interest. All communication lines between Command and Provisional Task Force Thorn 2 cut out. Dr. Jarvinen, again? Communications come back online shortly later, without external action. Letterthorn-2 Cap Rose, and finally, an apparent genius loci of the cave itself. Our current goal is to establish communication with that entity, if at all possible. Dr. Jarvinen, come in. Can you hear me? Letterthorn-2 Moloch, loud and clear, Doc. Why wouldn't we? Dr. Jarvinen, communications cut out briefly on my end. Letterthorn-2 Citrus, we didn't notice anything, sorry. If they're back now then we should be good? Dr. Jarvinen, I think so. Proceed with caution and try to stay in regular contact so we're warned if that happens again. Letterthorn-2 Cap Rose, copy. Dr. Jarvinen, now, in about 10 minutes of forward walking, you should come across a steep cliff, which will then lead into the more expansive cave system. The D-Class set up a rope and pitons and left them there, so you should be able to rappel down. Letterthorn-2 Crown, left or right, though? Dr. Jarvinen, I'm sorry? Letterthorn-2 Crown, we've reached a branching fork in the cave, which way is the drop? Dr. Jarvinen, that's unusual. I think that the initial descriptions of the cave had some accounting for inconsistent topography. Take the left. Letterthorn-2 Cap Rose, you heard her. Left it is. Letterthorn-2 Moloch, did you get the chance to watch the files from the last exploration log, Captain? Dr. Jarvinen, you weren't supposed to have access to those. We disseminated transcript logs and some pictures but not the videos. Letterthorn-2 Moloch, ha. I have my ways, Doctor. Letterthorn-2 Cap Rose, I saw the pictures, but I get your point. This cave system looks completely different. Much darker, and there's water all over the ground. Dr. Jarvinen, somewhat expected variance? You can't expect the tunnels to be completely consistent throughout, I suppose. Letterthorn-2 Citrus, I don't know, This seems like a bit too different to me. Thorn 2 advances through the cavern in silence for 20 minutes. They emerge into an open cavern, with a steep slope drop off to the left. There is approximately 1 foot of level terrain on the right-hand side. Letter Thorn -2 Moloch lights a flare and tosses it down the side of the slope. It slides down until the light fades into the darkness. Dr. Jarvinen, that doesn't make any sense. Those flares are supposed to be visible for up to 5 minutes and from up to 15 kilometers away. It shouldn't have disappeared into the darkness. That slope's impossibly deep. Letter Thorn -2 Citrus. Wait, what? Really? It's that deep? Letter Thorn -2 Moloch. Don't fall in, then. Letter Thorn -2 Crown. It's a long way down to slide. I could come up with something on the fall. I know enough to put something together. Letter Thorn -2 Cap Rose. Don't get cocky, Crown. Let's go. Thorn 2 advances along the narrow path on the right-hand side. Crown and Moloch make it to a landing on the other side of the cavern. Citrus and Rose are still advancing when the ice beneath Rose cracks. Without any warning, the ice shatters and Rose trips and falls over. Citrus looks back and reaches her hand out, but is unable to turn around due to the narrow width of the path. As such, Citrus is unable to reach Rose before she slips and falls into the pit. The 3 remaining cameras record video of Rose sliding down the pit, until she falls into the darkness. Rose's radio picks up audio of her screaming before abruptly cutting out. Letter Thorn -2 Citrus. Captain. Letter Thorn -2 Crown. Pass through the darkness into the light, sister. Thee it behoves to take another road, if from this savage place thou wouldst escape. Dr. Jarvinen. Moloch. In the absence of Rose, you're now in command of the mission. Proceed with the previous objectives, and try to find a way to rescue Rose if possible. Letter Thorn -2 Moloch. Her corpse, that is. Moloch. Crown and Citrus enter another cavern. This one with a low ceiling emits light from an unknown source. The ground of the cavern is covered in rocks. Letter Thorn -2 Citrus. It's pretty, at least. Dr. Jarvinen. Odd that there's rocks around you. I guess the glacier is very thin where you are. There can't be much ice above you if there's light. Letter Thorn -2 Crown. Or it could be a wrinkle in space. You never know, these are slippery things to hold. Letter Thorn -2 Moloch. Well, this seems like as good of a place as any to sit down and take a breather. We've been hiking around in here for a while, and we should take a quick stop, I think. The 3 remaining members of Thorn 2 sit down and open their packs, retrieving trail rations and thermoses. They begin to eat in silence. Letter Thorn -2 Citrus. Rose is gone, isn't she? Letter Thorn -2 Moloch. Almost certainly. If that slope was anywhere close to as long as Jarvinen said it was, then she's miles away from us by now. If space hasn't twisted around itself, that is. Letter Thorn -2 Crown. Reality isn't stable here. It's been weird. I feel like I'm walking through solid glass. Going through everything, but it could just, shatter. Break into 1,000 pieces. Letter Thorn -2 Citrus. Do you think we're in danger? Letter Thorn -2 Crown. We're in the belly of the beast, for certain. Letter Thorn -2 Citrus. The genius loci. The spirit of the cave that appeared to the D-class. Letter Thorn -2 Crown. If the cave is alive, and I can feel something of that sort, then yes, that would be the beast. Letter Thorn -2 Moloch. What did they teach you in the coalition? Letter Thorn -2 Crown. I'm not one of the greats, but on my old strike team there wasn't a soul without talent. Even if it was just a little flame of power, they all had that something. I learned a little. Letter Thorn -2 Citrus. Can you teach us some of that? Maybe a spell or two? Letter Thorn -2 Crown. Not quick enough. Letter Thorn -2 Moloch. Why'd you leave? Why'd you come to the Foundation? Betray the coalition. Letter Thorn -2 Crown. I'm no destroyer. Not a killer either, but that was never tested. I just didn't want to burn anymore. Letter Thorn -2 Citrus. I'm just out of the military and I got an offer. No special story from me. But what about you, Moloch? Said you were a probie? Letter Thorn -2 Moloch. While the case is pending, I'm forbidden to disclose any details. And I'm not going to be the reason Caesar Jarvinen gets a dose of amnestics to keep it secret. Letter Thorn -2 Crown. Quiet. Do you hear that? The three members of Thorn 2 stop speaking. A low rumble echoes throughout the cavern, slowly increasing in volume. Letter Thorn -2 Moloch. Don't bother packing. Just run. That way. Thorn 2 rises from their positions and begins to run. There is a tunnel on one wall, which Moloch is pointing to. The three head in that direction. An indistinct shape emerges from the tunnel and the team pivots, looking for another exit. For a brief moment, each member of PTF Thorn 2 is facing in a different direction. When they turn around, they are all now in different locations, with no apparent cut or abrupt disturbance. The other members have disappeared from each member's field of vision. Letter Thorn -2 Citrus. What the? Letter Thorn -2 Moloch. Dr. Jarvinen. The team has disappeared. They were all behind me just a second ago. Letter Thorn -2 Crown. Into the ether. Dr. Jarvinen. Thorn 2. I'm in contact with all of you. Can you hear each other on your radios? Letter Thorn -2 Moloch. Yes, turns out I can. Dr. Jarvinen. Okay. You need to keep moving. Get out of the cave. The rumbling is still there. Try to find an exit. Look for each other if possible. Letter Thorn -2 Moloch. I can hear bogies closing in on me from multiple directions. I'm going to. Feed from Moloch abruptly cuts out. Letter Thorn -2 Citrus. Sir? Dr. Jarvinen. Crown. Citrus. Just try to regroup. Your current task is to escape from SCP-1444 by whatever means necessary. Letter Thorn -2 Crown unsheathes their tactical knife and begins to carve a symbol onto the closest ice wall. Dr. Jarvinen. Crown. What are you doing? Letter Thorn -2 Crown. I'm going to create an explosion. A spell gone wrong can have disastrous results, and I'm going to do it intentionally. Dr. Jarvinen. Your file never said you could do that. Letter Thorn -2 Crown. I didn't think it would come to it, so, no, I never told the Foundation. It's something of a last resort, you see. Dr. Jarvinen. I'm ordering you to stop. Letter Thorn -2 Crown. I'm very sorry, Doctor. Tell Citrus that she needs to run as far as she can. I'm going to buy her some time. Letter Thorn -2 Crown continues carving and turns off their audio. Dr. Jarvinen. Citrus. Listen to me. You're the last member of the team still responding to communications. Crown is apparently sacrificing themselves for you. The D-Class found a way out. You need to go chase it down. Letter Thorn -2 Citrus. Yes. Copy. I'm going. Letter Thorn -2 Citrus begins running towards the walls. The sound of rumbling is growing louder. After a minute, Citrus passes in front of a tunnel leading off the main cavern. The roof of the tunnel has been carved, and there are wooden boards on the floor. At the same time, Crown finishes the carving. Turning around, the camera reveals multiple black, wolf-like entities circling Crown. They remove a flare from their pack, ignite it, and slam it into the carving on the wall. A bright light is created, and then audio-visual is lost. The sound of a large explosion is heard on Citrus's camera. Letterthorn -2 Citrus. I think that was Crown, but this looks promising. I'm going to go down. Dr. Jarvinen, it was. Go down that tunnel. It's your best chance of getting out of here. Letterthorn -2 Citrus. Doctor, can I ask you a question? Dr. Jarvinen, of course. Letterthorn -2 Citrus. Do you actually think that I have a good chance of getting out of here alive? Be honest. Dr. Jarvinen, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you get out safe, okay? I haven't given up on you. Letterthorn -2 Citrus. I said to be honest. Dr. Jarvinen, it's not looking good, Citrus. I'm sorry. Letterthorn -2 Citrus. I think I thought as much. The cave's eaten so many of us already. The two you sent in here before me, Rose, Crown. Dr. Jarvinen, eaten. Letterthorn -2 Citrus. I'm sorry. Dr. Jarvinen, why did you say eaten? That's an unusual word choice. Howling comes from behind Citrus. Her body contorts as she evidently looks behind her, but the body camera does not follow her perspective. Citrus begins running down the wooden planks of the carved tunnel. After 30 seconds, Citrus is knocked to the ground by a force behind her. Communications feed ceases upon impact with the floor. Dr. Jarvinen, Perkle. 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 Letterthorn -2 Moloch's communications reactivate. Letterthorn -2 Moloch. Hey, Kesa. Kesa. You there? Dr. Jarvinen, Moloch, are you still alive? Letterthorn -2 Moloch. Hardly. I'm holed up in a carved chamber of some sort in the cave, made out of ice. It looks like it was done by hand. Bleeding out. Dr. Jarvinen, how long do you think you can last? Letterthorn -2 Moloch. Not much longer, but I think I can hold on for a little bit. My comms are dying, not much life on them. Those'll fail soon. Dr. Jarvinen, I'll see what I can do regarding extraction. I should be able to get another task force. Letterthorn -2 Moloch, as long as you try. End log. Rescue log, MTF Zeta 9. Preface. Following the apparent loss of 3 members of Provisional Task Force, it was decided that a more experienced and coordinated mobile task force would be deployed into SCP-1444. MTF Zeta 9 Mole Rats was selected for this purpose. One team of Zeta 9, comprising of 5 agents, was sent into SCP-1444. The rest of Zeta 9 was stationed outside of SCP-1444, to be deployed into SCP-1444 if needed, in addition to providing assistance for mission control. Rescue video log transcript. Date: the 20th of June, 2013. Exploration Team, MTF Zeta 9, Mole Rats. Subject: SCP-1444 Rescue Attempt. Mission Command: Z9 Captain Hollis, Dr. Jarvinen, Z9 Auxiliary Teams. Team Lead, Z9 Lead Towers. Team Members: Z9 Raphael, Z9 Monroe, Z9 Zhao, Z9 Rossales. Begin log. Z9 Cap Hollis, this is Zeta 9 Captain Hollis. Mole Rats, give me a roll call for the records. Z9 Lead Towers, Sergeant Graham Towers. I'll be leading the mission today. Z9 Raphael. Z9 Monroe. Sergeant Monroe. Explosives handler. Z9 Zhao. Lieutenant Francis Zhao. Z9 Rossales. I'm Corporal Media Rossales. Dr. Jarvinan. Rossales? That name sounds familiar. Any Foundation family? Z9 Rossales. We're a prolific Foundation brood. My uncle is captain of the Georgia Bombers. My dad was head of the archaeological division for a couple decades. My older brother is his successor, and my younger brother's on Zeta 2. Perseus, Hector, Ulysses and Achilles. Dr. Jarvinan, your family has quite the naming scheme. Z9 Rossales, sure does. Z9 Cap Hollis, let's go over the mission briefing. I take it that you've all had the chance to review the video footage of the last two explorations, but this won't be like those two. This time it's a rescue. A member of Provisional Task Force Thorn 2 has been trapped within SCP-1444 and is currently alive. His radio has died, but we're still getting a vital reading. Z9 Zhao. Can't trust Provisionals with anything, can you? Nowhere near as good as us rats. Dr. Jarvinan. Thorn 2 served honorably under the circumstances they were facing. Z9 Zhao. If you say so. Z9 Lead Towers. Alright team. Before we head in, I'd like to discuss strategy. That cave has incredibly distorted spatial realities, but the Thorn is in there somewhere. Now, in my experience, effects like this crumple under pressure. So if we break the walls and blow them up, space will start collapsing. If we're controlled about it, we should be able to collapse ourselves onto Thorn's position, and then burst out. Dr. Jarvinan, how reliable is that technique? We don't want to injure Moloch in the process of rescue. Z9 Monroe, it sounds dangerous, but we've done it successfully in the past. Z9 Lead Towers, if there's nothing else anybody wants to cover, we can head out now. The detachment of MTF Zeta 9 enters SCP-1444, while the other teams remain on the surface at Outpost 1444. Z9 Rossales. Colder in here. Z9 Raphael. Not the worst I've ever had. Z9 Zhao. It's an ice cave in Finland. What do? There is a 30-second communications failure between MTF Zeta 9 and Command. No signals are recorded coming from the inside of SCP-1444 during this time. Z9 Cap Hollis. What's going on? Dr. Jarvinan. Communications failure. It's happened both previous times guys have gone in. It has to be related to SCP-1444. Current hypothesis is that they've reached the threshold of the actual anomaly. Z9 Cap Hollis. But the comms come back? Dr. Jarvinan. About 30 seconds later. We gave the Thorn 2 and your boys better equipment than the Ds. Didn't do anything. Z9 Cap Hollis. Don't trust it. Dr. Jarvinan. Neither do I. 30 seconds after the beginning of the failure, signals return. Communications restored between MTF Zeta 9 and Command. Z9 Lead Towers. Come in, Command. This is Zeta 9. Dr. Jarvinan. We're picking you back up, Zeta 9. It seems you have reached the anomalous portion of SCP-1444 itself. Z9 Monroe. So this is where the fun begins? Z9 Lead Towers. Let's get straight to the point then, and blast a hole in the closest wall over there. Z9 Raphael. No time to waste. Z9 Monroe. Right away. Step back, everyone. Z9 Monroe removes a long drill from his equipment and bores into the ice wall. He then removes an explosive charge and feeds it into the hole, securing a fuse line out. After clearing the explosive radius of the charge, he detonates it. When the debris clears, there is a large opening in the middle of the wall, large enough for an individual to pass through. Z9 walks through the opening, into a large cavern. On the far wall of the cavern is an ornate wooden staircase, leading up the side of the wall to a balcony 40 feet in the air. The tops of the balcony extend in either direction beyond the initial cavern. In contrast to other areas of SCP-1444, this staircase has artificial lighting. Z9 Monroe, it worked. Z9 Cap Hollis, is that staircase going up? Wouldn't that take them out of the glacier? Dr. Jarvinen, it would normally, but it appears the dimensions within the glacier don't correlate well to those outside of it. Z9's how? Looks like we've found something, alright. Z9 Rossales, those are lights. There has to be a power source somewhere, which we should be able to follow relatively easily. Z9 lead towers, good point. The member of Thorn 2 that we were supposed to rescue gave his last known location as being in the middle of a carved section of ice, so a man-made section is probably close to that. Dr. Jarvinen, all good analysis, team. Follow those lights to see if you can find a source. Zeta 9 begins to climb the staircase together. Z9 Raphael, careful. These are rickety. While Monroe, the last member of Zeta 9 in the line, is ascending the staircase, the stairs begin to creak, before a board gives out from under Monroe. He falls quickly and tries to grab onto a railing, but they are covered in ice and he is unable to get a good grip before falling 30 feet down. Monroe crashes into the ground and stops moving. Blood begins to pool around his head. Z9's how? Shit. Z9 Raphael, what did I say? Z9 Cap Hollis, you need to get off those stairs as quickly as you can. They're not safe. You can assess the situation after. Z9 lead towers, yes ma'am. Looks like we have to abandon Monroe. Let's go, everyone. The rest of Zeta 9 is able to safely ascend the stairwell. There are multiple tunnels leading off from the landing that the task force has convened upon, in several directions. The closest tunnel has metal railings, mats on the floor and is carved directly into the ice. Z9 Cap Hollis, if you're looking for a power source then the tunnel in front of you is your best option. Dr. Jarvinen, I'm not sure that's AC. In the command office, Z9 Cap Hollis slaps Dr. Jarvinen's shoulder and brings a finger to her lips. Z9 lead towers, good idea, Captain. Let's go. Z9 Rossales, how long was he on the team? Z9 Raphael, Monroe? Z9 Rossales, yeah. Z9's how? 3 years. Before that, he had been on that one task force that blows up houses. Can't remember the name. Love them, though. Z9 Raphael, Home Improvement. C7. Z9's how? Yeah, that's the one. He wanted a little more danger in his life. And a promotion. Z9 Rossales, it's just that he died so randomly. Fell down a little and. Z9 lead towers, that's a reminder. For all your bluster, you could just get cut down, nice and easy. No fight or anything, just the fall into the abyss. Dr. Jarvinen, one member of Thorn 2 died the same way on the last exploration. Z9's how? Never change, temps. Z9 Cap Hollis, you know, that place looks something like a Foundation facility, don't you think? Just like one of those labs the eggheads love. White walls, professional and all. Z9 lead towers, I can see the resemblance. Dr. Jarvinen. Proceed forward. See if you can find any offshoots or terminus to the tunnel. Z9 lead towers. Understood. Zeta 9 proceeds forward along the tunnel, until reaching an end. The tunnel terminates in a staircase leading up, this one carved into the ice. The lights continue leading up into the new tunnel, which is solely composed of ice. Z9 Rossales. Power source has to be that way, right? We've found something good this time. Dr. Jarvinen. Os. Z9 Cap Hollis. Yes. Go on. Proceed up those stairs. Zeta 9 ascends the staircase and reaches a new tunnel system. This portion of the system is carved with a high level of detail, and has several branching tunnels on the right-hand side. Z9 Raphael. Cold. Z9 lead towers. Captain, earlier you said something about the tunnels resembling a Foundation facility. Do you think that holds even truer now? Z9 Cap Hollis. Absolutely. Look around you for any identification. Z9 lead towers. There's a plaque here. It's covered in snow. It says property of the Foundation. Z9 Cap Hollis. The bottom's obscured. Wipe it off. Does it say Department of Abnormalities? Z9 lead towers. 1 second. Horizontal ellipsis. Yes, it does. Z9 Cap Hollis mutes command broadcasting audio. Z9 Cap Hollis. Do you think this is all suspicious? Dr. Jarvinen. How so? Z9 Cap Hollis. This is all too perfect. Far too perfect. This whole time the video feed has been molding to what we expect from it. Every time I mention or suggest something, it comes up. I mention it looks a little like a Foundation site and then it perfectly matches one. And now it's a Department of Abnormalities bunker? Dr. Jarvinen. What is that? Z9 Cap Hollis. Classified. But that cave is tailoring what our task force is finding. And it's trying to make itself interesting to us. Z9 Cap Hollis unmutes audio transmission. Z9 Cap Hollis. Scope of the mission has changed. Rescue is no longer your primary concern, but securing this location. We don't know what could be in here, so proceed with caution. Any kind of anomaly could be present. Z9 lead towers. Copy that, Captain. MTF Zeta 9 continues along the hallways, before coming to a door marked with SCP-10A. Z9 Zhao opens the door and enters, followed by Z9 Rossales. Z9 Raphael and Z9 lead towers remain outside. Inside the room is a humanoid statue, covering its mouth with its hands. Z9 Zhao. 3 wise monkeys. Ha. This is anomalous, right? Z9 lead towers. It's Department of Abnormalities. You figure it out. Z9 Zhao. Wonder what it could. The statue animates and reaches out to touch Z9 Zhao. Although he flinches back, the statue lightly brushes his arm, before returning to its previous position. Z9 Zhao's arm begins to transmute into ice at the point of contact. He touches the ice with his uninfected hand, which also begins to transmute. He loudly and audibly sighs. Z9 Zhao. Towers? I've been infected by an anomaly with a certain chance of death. Requesting immediate termination. Z9 lead towers and Z9 Raphael enter the room and observe Z9 Zhao. Z9 lead towers. For fuck's sake, Zhao. What the hell was all that about provisionals? Take the shot. Z9 Raphael raises his rifle and fires multiple times at Z9 Zhao, hitting him in the head and chest. Z9 Zhao falls to the ground, and his body continues to transmute into ice. Z9 Rossales. Jesus. Z9 Raphael. Not touching that. Z9 lead towers. Yeah. Leave the body. Let's go. Eyes on the statue as we leave. The 3 remaining members of MTF Zeta 9 exit the room, keeping camera feed on the statue until they exit. Z9 lead towers. No more messing around with anomalies. We need to find a central control chamber in here, or something like that. Z9 Cap Hollis. Good idea. Go looking for that. MTF Zeta 9 proceeds down the hall, until they pass by a chamber with a melted hole in the wall. Water drips down from the ceiling, and debris is strewn throughout the hallway around the hole. The interior of the chamber is empty. Z9 Raphael. Call 9-tailed fox. Z9 lead towers. Captain, should we try to recontain the escaped anomaly? Z9 Cap Hollis. No. But keep an eye out for it, I suppose. It could strike at any moment. Could come from behind you at any moment. In fact, it might be sneaking up on you right. Unidentified. Hello. Z9 Raphael. Rossales and towers turn around. A collection of naked humanoids, collectively SCP-1444-1C, is standing behind them, completely blocking the hallway. Each humanoid is brandishing a bloody knife, axe or other edged weapon. There are enough to completely block the hallway, and a view of the others. Zeta 9 collectively back up and draw their weapons against SCP-1444-1C. Z9 Raphael, you're quiet. Z9 lead towers, who are you? What do you want? SCP-1444-1C, speaking collectively. To feast. Dr. Jarvinen, food, huh? Z9 lead towers. We were expecting one genius loci, not a whole pack of them. Why are there so many of you? SCP-1444-1C. I am Legion. Z9 Cap Hollis. And you contain multitudes, you utter hack. SCP-1444-1C. We'll be free eventually. And we'll come for you then. Captain Hollis. Z9 Cap Hollis, do you think that's the first time something like you has vowed an oath of enmity against me? You aren't taking me down. Get some original material for once. Fire at will. Zeta 9 opens fire on the mob of humanoids. Although the majority of SCP-1444-1C are quickly killed by the bullet fire, a few are able to press forward and get within reach of Z9 lead towers. They are able to stab him to death. Z9 Raphael and Z9 turn and run down the hallway. Dr. Jarvinen, are you retreating? You had the advantage. They were naked and only had knives. Z9 Raphael, too many of them. Z9 Rossales, I just want to get out of here. A member of the mob throws a knife at the fleeing pair. It catches Raphael in the leg, and he yells in pain, falling to the ground. The rest of the mob is able to catch up to him and repeatedly stab him to death. Z9 Rossales opens the door of a side chamber and closes it. The interior of the room is a storage facility, with several tables and shelves. She grabs a table and pushes it front of the door. Z9 Cap Hollis mutes audio transmission. Z9 Cap Hollis, it's not real. This isn't actually happening. The feeds are lying to us. This is not how they would act. It's nothing like them. I know these people. Dr. Jarvinen, Captain, I understand where you're coming from, but you need to accept this. I'm sorry that the squadron. Z9 Cap Hollis, it's not real. This is a lie. Z9 Rossales, I've barricaded myself inside of a storage locker of sorts. The door is holding. Dr. Jarvinen, we need to get back to business, Captain. Dr. Jarvinen unmutes audio transmission. Dr. Jarvinen, copy that, Rossales. Is there any secondary exit to your chamber? Z9 Rossales, not that I can see. Dr. Jarvinen, any saved explosives? Z9 Rossales, nothing of the sort. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to get Moloch, really am. Dr. Jarvinen, it's. The noise and tremors from a large explosion is picked up by Outpost 1444. Smoke rises from the glacier, observed by several members of MTF Zeta 9 outside of Outpost 1444. Z9 Cap Hollis, what was that? Z9 Rossales, what was what? Z9 Burrows, Captain. You can see smoke from an explosion rising from the entrance to SCP-1444. Z9 Cap Hollis, Jarvinen, I'm going to take a team to investigate that. Rossales, stay where you are while we figure this out. Dr. Jarvinen, copy. Command begins receiving a new set of communication signals. Z9 Rossales, Command. Come in. We have escaped from 1444 and are headed to camp right now. Come in. Copy. Z9 Cap Hollis, Rossales, what? What is your position? Z9 Rossales, I'm in the cave, what's happening on the surface? Z9 Rossales, who the fuck is that? Z9 Lead Towers. We're outside Glacier with Thorn 2 Crown and Citrus. Able to find both alive. We've just blasted our way out of 1444. No casualties on our team. Dr. Jarvinen, Crown and Citrus? What? They are dead, they died. No, it was Moloch you were supposed to rescue. Letter Thorn -2 Crown, but here I am, Doctor. And Moloch's lying in the ice with his head cracked open. Z9 Cap Hollis, stay where you are. We're coming to your position. Z9 Cap Hollis organizes the Zeta 9 secondary team to rendezvous with the individuals claiming to be the Zeta 9 primary team and exits Outpost 1444 with the team. They quickly find the supposed members of the Zeta 9 primary team, who are physically supporting an injured but living Letter Thorn -2 Crown. Citrus is unconscious, on a rescue basket being dragged forward by Raphael. Z9 Lead Towers, Captain Hollis, good to see you. The Zeta 9 secondary team raises their weapons against the Zeta 9 primary team and the Thorn 2 survivors and assume a tactical position, surrounding the Zeta 9 primary team. Z9 Burrows, don't move. Letter Thorn -2 Crown, I'm not the only turncoat here. I should know my luck by now. Greek letter Zeta -9 Lead Towers, what's the meaning of this, Captain? Z9's how, they think we're anomalous. There's another Rossales on the radio, after all. One of us has to be. Z9 Raphael, can't have two of the same. Z9 Cap Hollis, turn off your radios, right now. Everyone here, even secondary team. The radios of Captain Hollis, all members of the Zeta 9 secondary team, and the individuals purporting to be the Zeta 9 primary team and the Thorn 2 survivors are turned off. Z9 Rossales, what's happening on the surface, Caesar? Dr. Jarvinen, we know. Protocol dictates I don't answer that. Apologies. Z9 Rossales, what protocol? Caesar, what do you mean? What's going on up there? Dr. Jarvinen does not respond. Z9 Cap Hollis's radio turns back on approximately 1 minute later. Z9 Cap Hollis, Dr. Jarvinen, I have verified the identity of the Zeta 9 that escaped from SCP-1444. Please administer the 5-word test to the Rossales in SCP-1444. Dr. Jarvinen. Copy that. Corporal Rossales. I have one question for you. Does the Black Moon howl? All Foundation personnel on the radio channel respond to this question with an appropriate answer, verifying their identities and lack of deleterious mind-affecting phenomena. At this time, audio-visual communications from within SCP-1444 abruptly ceased, replaced with a single black frame and an audio feed of a voice that matches SCP-1444-1B. Unknown. The Black Moon screams the wail of a banshee, drowning out the light of the world. Listen not to its siren call, for it is nothing more than a fly trap. The howling of the moon will never end, for it will never stop being hungry. All broadcasting from within SCP-1444 ends. Z9 Lead Towers. What's going on? End log. Debriefing log. Z9 Towers. Debriefing log transcript. Date: the 21st of June, 2013. Subject: Events of SCP-1444 rescue attempt. Interviewer: Dr. Jarvinen. Interviewed: Z9 Towers. Begin log. Dr. Jarvinen. Hi, Graham. Z9 Towers. Hey, Kaiser. Dr. Jarvinen. The purpose of this interview is to determine what actually occurred during Mobile Task Force Zeta-9's, the Mole Rats, exploration into SCP-1444. Z9 Towers. You don't need to. Dr. Jarvinen. Sorry, it's just procedural. For the clarity on the transcript. You can begin now. Z9 Towers. What we experienced was identical to the video logs until the point where the comms failed. That's the first point of divergence, and everything is different after that. Dr. Jarvinen. For the record, all of the cameras we used in these exploration logs were only streaming, and didn't save anything to themselves. They record too much to save locally. Z9 Towers. Right. So you have nothing after we went in? Dr. Jarvinen. Nothing verifiable after the communication failure, no. Z9 Towers. Well, I guess I'll give my recap from that point onward, then. We waited for a little bit after the comms went down trying to reconnect, but they never came back on. Since we hadn't gone very far, I made the decision to head back to the outpost and fix them. Dr. Jarvinen. Standard operating procedure after the loss of contact with command, correct? Z9 Towers. More or less. But we turned around and all of a sudden there was an ice wall in front of us, blocking the entrance. Don't know where it came from, since that was one of the only actual instances of reality warping we encountered. I told Monroe and Rossales to start working on drilling explosives into the wall, which they got ready for. Dr. Jarvinen. But the explosion didn't come for a while later, right until you escaped? Z9 Towers. Right. I told them to wait for us to get back, to lessen the chance of a hostile response, and so we wouldn't have to blow another hole when we were actually trying to get out of there. I took Raphael and Zhao and marched a little forward into the cave. About 50 feet down, there was a weak point in the cave floor. Dr. Jarvinen. The hiker who escaped mentioned a crevice. Z9 Towers. Right. The ice was weak, so if you walked onto it, it'd give out from under you and send you falling into the ice. We shot it once and it crumbled. Radioed back to Rossales and Monroe and told them what we found. Once that was established, it was time to set up our climbing equipment. That took a few minutes to make sure everything was secure, and then I descended into the pit. Raphael and Zhao waited at the top for me to give an all clear at the bottom. Z9 Towers. We got to the bottom of the cave. It opens up into a huge cavern. There were a ton of bodies down there, just covering the floor. A couple had been rolled away from the drop, so you wouldn't have fallen directly onto the bodies. Those bodies were all covered in ice, with the backs of their heads cracked open, and a web of blood stemming from the back. Dr. Jarvinen, what about the survivors? The Thorns, Crown and Citrus. Z9 Towers, right. The two of them were off to the side, and they were glowing gold, embracing each other. Breathing, although very slowly. I dropped down to the floor, and poked the ground with a stick. No reaction, so I lowered myself to walk onto the floor, but didn't disconnect from the harness. Z9 Towers, I shook them, and the glow faded. Crown woke up, and kinda sat up. They explained that their task force had fallen into the same pit we had just descended, and crashed. Both of the two survivors had broken some bones, but Rose and Moloch weren't as lucky. Skulls cracked on impact. The ground had started shifting and moving, so Crown grabbed Citrus and put them into some kind of stasis. Dr. Jarvinen, it was an abjurative working. Crown is a mystic, although mostly untrained. They did know how to enter a minor state of inviolability, but had to sap the energy out of Citrus to survive. They got her permission, of course. Z9 Towers, good we got there before both of them bit it. Anyway, we figure out that the two aren't in any shape to climb back up the pit, so I call up to Zhao and Raphael. I tell them they need to drop another line down, this one with a rescue basket. They set that one up. They had already been in the process of getting another pulley, so it doesn't take as long. First we get Citrus up, then Crown. Operation goes easy. Dr. Jarvinen, no anomalous reaction from the cave? It didn't try to stop you? There was no shifting on the ground? Z9 Towers, as soon as we made the plan, Crown and Citrus went back into being invincible, while I pulled up a few feet, so I wasn't touching the ground. Whatever is controlling that cave, I don't think it's very smart. Dr. Jarvinen, and Raphael and Zhao didn't have any troubles with deploying the bed and pulling it back up again? Z9 Towers, none. I helped get Citrus onto the basket. Crown went inviolable, and off we went. The cave started groaning at that point, but I didn't think too much of it. It wasn't an animal groan, it was an ice groan. Like ice cracking and the like. Basket went up, they got Citrus off, and then they dropped it down again for Crown. I got them onto the basket, and that's when things got a bit rougher. Z9 Towers, the cave actually started to speak, at that point. The ice started rippling, so I belayed myself back up a few feet and gave the all clear to take Crown up. Raphael and Zhao lifted them, and then I started to get a good handle on the situation. Z9 Towers, in front of me are dozens of corpses. Some are recognizable, 2 in D-class outfits, 2 in task force gear. The rest are just hikers. There's sounds coming from all around me, some voices screaming, others demanding that I stop, others begging me to feed them. Now, Doctor, you might look down on me for this next bit, but I don't really care. Dr. Jarvinen, what did you do, Graham? Z9 Towers, I've been in my share of hostile environments. Living caves and the like. What I was hearing. Nothing more than a manipulation tactic. There could have been something that needed help, but I doubt it. I didn't know what was in the cave, and I still don't. What I knew was that I had some gasoline, some explosives and some flares in my pack. Dr. Jarvinen, you set the cave on fire? Z9 Towers, scattered the explosives, poured out the gasoline. The voices abated for a little bit. I got farther up, lit a few flares, and dropped them. All the voices were screaming after that. I ignored them and scaled to the top of the pit, where my entire team was waiting for me. Z9 Towers. As soon as I got to the top, Monroe activated the explosive charges and we booked it out of there to the surface. And then we get out, hear Rossales on the radio, and then Hollis comes in at us. I've heard a little about what was happening on the surface, but Dr. Jarvinen, go over that in more detail, please. Z9 Towers, of course. We break onto the surface, and our comms connect back to base. I make contact. We've got 2 wounded and they need our help. I start talking. Dr. Jarvinen, and you hear the voice of Rossales. Z9 Towers, who's standing right beside me, not speaking. And other Rossales says she's still in the cave. Then, Hollis comes charging at me with the rest of the mole rats, trying to verify our identities. Keep going. Dr. Jarvinen, no, I think that's enough. Z9 Towers, anything else you want to cover? Dr. Jarvinen, some last questions. To note, you didn't experience any spatial distortions in the cave? Z9 Towers, no. It was a quick, easy in, easy out. The ice wall that appeared behind us was just created within the tunnel, rather than a twist in space-time. Dr. Jarvinen, no artificial structures? Z9 Towers, no. Dr. Jarvinen, no anomalous entities? Z9 Towers, didn't see anything. Just the things I heard. Z9 Towers, going to tell me what was going on back there? Dr. Jarvinen, we have our suspicions, but nothing firm. I imagine you'll be cleared eventually. Z9 Towers, relating to that genius loci mob that we had the pleasure of running into, I imagine? The fake us on the video. Dr. Jarvinen, those entities play a major part of my theories, but I can't explicitly confirm anything just yet. Z9 Towers, typical Foundation. Indefinite holding. Need anything else? Dr. Jarvinen, not at the moment. Any final comments? Z9 Towers, no, I don't think. Actually, 1. Put in a recommendation that Crown and Citrus get brought onto the mole rats. I'd be more than happy to have them. Dr. Jarvinen, noted. End log. Notes. As head researcher of SCP-1444, I am hereby issuing a moratorium on all future explorations of the anomaly. The official reason I shall be using when filing this request is that the attrition rate for the anomaly has been too high for the level of information about it we have learned. However, it is clear to me that our prior understanding of SCP-1444 is likely inaccurate. Evidence suggests that some entity desires us to send more individuals into SCP-1444. We cannot give it what it wants. Dr. Kesa Jarvinen.